Five-star offensive tackle Jackson Cantwell, who happens to be the top player in the class of 2026, has made it known he might be ready to make a decision earlier than he thought. He's got all the information he needs, and guess what? The Miami Hurricanes are right there trending at the front or near the front, and has one of Miami's top rivals for Cantwell started to get a little pessimistic.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday. We made it. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are less than 24 hours away from Miami's spring football game. We're going to talk with our special guest about what a successful spring game would look like for Miami, which players we want to see step up and see progress from at Cobb Stadium right next to Green Tree tomorrow afternoon. Miami's got multiple 5 stars that they're very much in the mix for right now. We're going to talk about Jackson Cantwell. We're also going to talk about 5-star wide receiver Tristen Keys. He is committed elsewhere. He's committed to LSU. Miami has not stopped recruiting Keys, and he's going to be at the spring game tomorrow. So let's bring on the man, the myth, the legend. He's our boy Blue, Larry Blustein. He is one of our show favorites here. He hosts the most informative radio show in the country. And so, Blue, we'll talk about Miami's chances for Jackson Cantwell. How big of a get would this be for Mario Cristobal if he can beat out the competition?
You know, under a lot of circumstances, first of all, thank you for having us in on this beautiful Friday, the eve of the spring game. Under most circumstances, it would probably be a big surprise. But let's examine where Miami is as far as their offensive line and their standing nationally. They're probably one of the best groups in the country, certainly in the ACC, and definitely trending towards being one of the deepest. And as you can see from their commitments, from the players that they have on board, it wouldn't be a total surprise because, I mean, here you have every time somebody walks on campus and your offensive line coach could kind of drop names like Penei Sewell and other guys that he's coached. And, you look at Rivers coming up in this draft, and then next year, certainly Mawanoa. And if Okunlolo has a great year, he certainly has that type of talent. So it's not out of the realm. And he's one of those players that could, at any time say, you know what, the head coach spends more time with the offensive line than probably anybody I've been around, which is great because I'll get an opportunity to work with him, plus one of the best offensive line coaches, and then learn from some of the players that are there. So to me, it wouldn't be out of the realm, and doesn't matter whether he's number 1 or number 101. It's just this is a type of player that would fit Miami's scheme and where they're headed.
Yeah, and every indication I've gotten, Blue, every conversation I've had over the past several days, every bit of feedback I've gotten is that Miami is right there on this recruitment. And I never get crazy enough to go out there and guarantee anything, especially when you're talking about the top player in the class. Like, I can only imagine what his phone looks like. If he steps away from his phone for 5 minutes, the amount of texts and calls he's getting from coaches all around the country. So it's like, you never want to offer a guarantee, but I've got a cautious amount of optimism that Miami is right there, either tied for the lead or perhaps in the lead for Jackson Cantwell. Now here's something that, take everything with a grain of salt because the young man has not made his decision yet. Now he did say he feels like he has enough information now to make his decision and that he doesn't even think any of these schools in an official visit can do anything to offer him more information than he has now, which lends people to believe Cantwell could be days or weeks away from making up his mind. And then I also I saw this, Blue, because it's also important to see what the experts who cover other programs are saying. I don't like to live in a bubble when I'm just looking at the Miami perspective on everything. And this was something interesting published this morning on Scoop Duck, which is the Oregon 24/7 site, and their publisher Justin Hopkins wrote today. He says, obviously, a lot of talk about Cantwell, and Oregon, by the way, very much in the mix for Cantwell, as is Miami, as is Georgia. Those people consider Miami, Georgia, and Oregon to be the top three. Ohio State, Michigan, and Mizzou are also in the mix. So the publisher of the Oregon 24/7 site said, obviously, a lot of talk about Cantwell and a potential decision coming up. He says, well, you won't like what I'm about to tell you, he said. If he does make a commitment soon, it nearly certainly won't be Oregon, he said. I would put my money on Miami, he said. I had heard this yesterday after the news came out, and it was reaffirmed last night as well. From the Oregon side, confidence is pretty low on their chances here. So, again, until the young man makes the announcement, we're still riding this roller coaster. But to hear someone who covers one of these other programs say that makes me feel pretty good.
Yeah, well, it should, and certainly a lot of these, because obviously they run on their subscriptions and they want to tell their fans a lot of good stuff. Yeah. So obviously if they come up with something negative, it may, they wouldn't just do that out of the blue. So obviously they feel either, strongly about whether it's Miami or, as you mentioned, Georgia, which is another great landing spot, in Missouri and, those ACC schools. But I just think, and I've said that, I mean, if it was a receiving core or if it was a defensive secondary, you say to yourself, okay, well, Miami really doesn't have much on the receiving front as far as experience, because all of them left from last year defensively in the secondary, and we'll talk a little bit about that as part of the spring game. They have some new faces. Coblum will be 1 year and done, so obviously you could sell, but offensive line is a place where you don't have to sell dreams. You have the reality right out in front of you. And, and like I told you, when I went to see them scrimmage, that was the one place that I spent the most time. And that was the one place, and I even talked to Coach Cristobal and Coach Mirabal about that on the way out, and said how, impressed I was. And I even kind of hearkened back to you and I, when we used to, kind of take a look at the team in the off season and their strengths and their, and their weaknesses. And you and I both 2-3 years ago would say, wow, our running backs don't even have a chance because the offensive line is being pushed, back 4 and 5 yards. But Alex, it's changed, and to the point where the offensive line, depth-wise, talent-wise, skill-wise, is, I think, the best part of this entire team going into spring.
I'm not going to pretend that NIL isn't a factor, and Miami's been in a good NIL situation, but I see someone in our live chat saying that, hey, this is just going to be a highest bidder thing for Cantwell. Blue, I've been told that that's not the case for him, and obviously, he's going to get a good NIL package wherever he goes, right? That's sure. Not up for debate. Like he's going to be well compensated no matter where he goes. But I don't think, and maybe for some recruits over the years, maybe it is a highest bidder thing. I've been told that it's not like a strictly a highest bidder thing for Cantwell, that it's going to be a lot of the stuff you talked about in terms of the fit. Now, one thing that I do wonder, Blue, you probably know more about Miami's track and field program than I do. I know that Amy Deem is really great and really well respected, who runs that program. But I wonder in the case of Cantwell, like how much the track and field is going to be a factor, because he is a dual sport athlete in that he is a throwing specialist, shot put, javelin, discus. You hand this man something heavy, he's going to throw it. Like he's great at that stuff. And I have heard that his parents, who were both Olympians, by the way, in track and field, both of Cantwell's parents have a good relationship with Miami's track coach. But if depending on how big of a factor the track and field thing is, I am of the understanding that Oregon's track and field program probably blows away everybody else on his list. So, but again, like it should be more of a football decision than a track decision. but the track and field thing is another thing we have to keep in mind for him.
Well, like you said, I mean, at his caliber, the NIL package is a no-brainer. I mean, it's going to pretty much set him up, for a long, long, long time. You look at Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. I mean, here is one of those players who pretty much doesn't really have to do anything else. In fact, from what I understand, he might sit out next year. Not this year, but next year, because of the fact that he's pretty much, set on what he's going to do for the future. People don't need to see too much. I think that would be a mistake, but that's, that I'm not, I mean, I know his dad and I know, his relatives, but I don't ever get involved in that. But with Jackson Cantwell, I think the thing that you take a look at him, and it's nice that his parents were in track and they were Olympians and all that, but they were never faced with the decision that their son is, and their son who could go on to the league and set up generations and generations of their family just because of what he could do on the football field. Not to say that he wouldn't get great endorsements in track, but he's not going that direction.
Right.
And like I said, you participate in the track program at Miami, and we've had all those guys throughout the years that have done it. I mean, look at Ed Reed. I mean, he was a javelin thrower. I mean, you had guys that, like all the speedsters that came here and went through the track program, but they used that as, just a plus and an enhancement. I think that what the bearing is for him is going to be what he's going to get out of the football program and how they're going to set him up to be the best he could be. And I don't think that Miami can be rivaled when you have, like I said, when you have a Mirabal and you have your head football coach who's played the game at a high level. He's coached it at a high level. He knows every facet of the offensive line. He's not going to let you rest. He's always going to be on your tail. And to me, that's a plus. And then you're in this weather. You have a competitive schedule every year because people can say what they want about the SEC this or Big Ten this. ACC is pretty darn competitive. So, I mean, and you're going to get, especially with outside games against this year with the University of Florida and also Notre Dame, he's going to get plenty of exposure. Miami will be on, other than maybe the Bethune game or one of those type of games. They're going to be on every week. So, no, I think it's a valid thing for him. It's nice to look at the track program to answer your question, but at the same time, he comes here, it's all for football.
Yeah, and by the way, with Miami surging in recent weeks, they had a really productive unofficial visit with Cantwell back in March during spring ball, and that really helped Miami move the needle. He even got FaceTime with the university president, Joe Echeverria. Like, wow. Joe is taking his time to meet with Cantwell as well. So Cantwell, he's not going to be on campus this weekend, but another five-star player will be. Talk about moving the needle. Is Miami going to move the needle with five-star wide receiver Tristen Keys? You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We got Larry Blustein with us, and we're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, it is tax season, and this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you're going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We are live here on a Friday night, so make sure you smash that like button. Subscribe. If you listen to the audio version, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. We got the great Larry Blustein with us. All right, so Blue, another five-star, and Miami is trying to go uphill on this recruitment. Tristen Keys, top wide receiver in the class of 2026, is going to be at the spring game on Saturday. Now, He did come to Miami for an unofficial visit back in March, but then shortly after that visit, he committed to LSU. So if Miami can, get this one, it would have to be a flip from a program that isn't so easy to flip players from in the LSU Tigers. Talk about Tristen Keys, what he brings to the table, Blue, as a player, and maybe how difficult it would be to pry him away from a top SEC program.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, the only team right now that probably has the edge, Tennessee certainly is in there, and they always have a lot of money. All the SEC schools.
We'll see if Tennessee has a quarterback, Blue. You see Nico is
I saw that.
Out.
He's missing in action. He's a major recruit, obviously, but you know what, you look back and Miami's had those type of kids throughout the years. Look at the job that Nye Carr did in high school. Look at the job that JoJo Trader, who was, I try to remind a lot of these people that 2 years ago, coming out of high school, Jeremiah Smith was the number one receiver in the state of Florida. Number two was Josiah Trader. So, when you get those type of caliber players, and obviously Keys maybe up the rung a little bit because of his size, almost 6'3". He's got tremendous hands. He's got great burst. He's lethal in the slot. He's lethal outside. It's, you're wrestling, you're a little guy going into a lion's cage, so to speak, with LSU. But you know what? Stranger things have happened. There could be, kids are playing now in this 7-on-7 environment where a lot of these players, believe it or not, are playing on the same team. You look at the South Florida Express, and they have 4 kids from Texas that play on their team, which is based in South Florida. And so you never know what happens. You get these kids together. They go to Vegas. They go to, L.A. or whatever for a tournament, and they get together and they go, hey, you know what? We could be doing this and hanging out every weekend. You come, sign with us. So you never know what's cooking behind the scenes. And then kind of the reality sets in, and then people are starting to put finance in front of you because the almighty dollar wins out. Let's see what happens. But, LSU, as we found out last year with a couple of recruits, it's tough to tough to jump that shark, when it comes to finances. But Miami's done damn good. You can't say, you look at some of the talent that they have. And like you said, even, if they're in the mix with Cantwell, who's one of the best linemen in the country, if not the best lineman in the country. So they're in the conversation. So that means if they're in the conversation with the number one player in the country, they could be in with anybody.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And going back to the offensive line, a show favorite of ours here on Locked On Canes, Canon Pickett, is going to be at the spring game tomorrow. Now, when you talked about LSU taking players, one of the players that they took was his cousin DJ Pickett last year. Now, Cannon is the younger brother of Booker Pickett Jr., who's on Miami now, the edge rusher. So, hopefully he follows in his big brother's footsteps. And for Canon Pickett, by the way, Blue, there was some news on him this week that he's officially down to a top 3. Miami is in there, Clemson is in there, and Florida. So Gators, Hurricanes, Tigers are in the top 3 for Canon Pickett. Miami's going to try to maybe hopefully create some separation when they host him this weekend. He's got South Florida ties. He's a Tampa area kid who I'm sure you've had a chance to scout before. What stands out to you about Canon Pickett?
Very athletic, big kid, great feet. First time I saw him, the same thing. I saw him when he was a freshman. It's just, he runs in their family. I followed Booker Pickett Sr. when he played here from Zephyr Hills High School, back in the day. And then, the family lineage, I've watched them all over in the Zephyr Hills area north of Tampa for a number of years. But Cannon's just a very athletic big man, and you follow wrestling, and I can make an analogy because you get a lot of these wrestlers who are heavyweights now, but they learned how to wrestle when they were smaller. So they do things that the other heavyweights don't do, who are kind of, grown into that body. I mean, they shoot, they get singles, they do all this stuff. Well, he's that type of athlete who certainly was, a smaller version when he was growing up, and he learned from being around his cousins and being around, his relatives that, if you're going to play with us in the neighborhood, you better get a little bit more athletic, because, you could be big all day you want, but I mean, if you can't make some plays with us, and I'll tell you what, that was the first thing that when I saw him, he's got great feet, probably deficient when I saw him in the weight room, but that's all changed. And that's, that's time and that's maturity. So yeah, he's a big time kid, and his attitude is great. And the very fact that his football IQ is way up there because he's been around it, that's a plus.
Yeah. Well, speaking of a plus, we're going to get to watch Miami on the field tomorrow. And I do feel bad though, because they're not televising it this year, so you got to be there to see them. We are going to have radio coverage on WQAM tomorrow.
Yeah.
So Joe Zagacki is going to be on top of it. I'm actually going to be hosting the pregame tomorrow. I'll do a postgame Locked On Canes episode afterwards. So we're going to have all your spring game coverage. But I'd like to pick Blue's brain on this in terms of who's got to step up, who's got to show progress at Cobb Stadium tomorrow. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends, on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On NFL Draft. Especially, we're all Miami fans here, right? Canes fans. So we're expecting Cam Ward to go number 1 overall to the Titans. So much coverage is happening. Locked On NFL Draft. Where's Elijah Arroyo going to get taken, and by who? Xavier Restrepo, where is he going? Locked On NFL Draft, guys. We're just a couple weeks away, so make sure you make that your next listen here after Locked On Canes. Blue, so tomorrow, and you watch scrimmages and practices with a different set of eyes, and you, especially having covered so many of these players going back to their high school days and sometimes earlier, who would you like to see step up and really show progress in the spring game on Saturday?
Well, let me pick a group on each side. First of all, on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, even though you're kind of, depleted as far as experience at the wide receiver position, you have dudes. I mean, Josiah Trader, who I mentioned, Nye Carr, who I hadn't had an opportunity to talk a little bit about, CJ Daniels, a guy that has an opportunity, freshman Joshua Moore, who they stole from Florida, big body kid who everybody's still trying to make into a tight end, and he's abusing veteran secondaries right now. I'm looking to see Ray Joseph. This is the year, because if Ray doesn't get it done this year, there's really no reason for him to stay around. I mean, this is somebody that they coveted out of Edison. He's got to get into the mix, as far as being that slot guy to stretch the field, because he's got Malachi Toney, a kid that should be a junior in high school right now, pushing right down him. They have Dalen Upshaw. So I'm looking for those guys like the Nye Cars and players like that to step up. Let's see some of those younger players. Let's see some of those newcomers like the CJ Daniels. Let's see some of those freshmen. Let's see the established players, like a Ray Joseph, have an opportunity to do, because this is his third year here on campus. So you kind of look for those guys, Alex, on the offensive side, to kind of make a difference. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, we all are waiting to see, obviously, Charles Brantley and Xavier Lucas and Zachariah Poyser as new guys. But I want to see what Markeith Williams, could bring to the table. Yeah. This is his, I believe, 4th year. You're taking a look at guys like that who I have a feeling that, has to step up. But at the same time, it was the most deficient part of the team last year. So you've got some kids like Zaquan Patterson you want to take a look at, and Dylan Day, and players like that Ethan O'Connor, players that have joined the mix over the last kind of, couple of months, the Emmanuel Carnleys, guys who have had experience, the Damari Browns. So I think that the wide receiver group on offense, Alex, and the defensive secondary on the defensive side, I want to take a look at those kids. Not to say that we don't want to see the experience at linebacker and see some of those young kids like Wiley and, players like that have been making a difference at the linebacker spot. But I think because of the fact that the secondary is so deficient last year, and it kind of was like looked at, every time you talked about as being a reason why Miami kind of couldn't keep people off the board. Those are the two positions. Wide receiver last year was crazy good, but everybody's gone, and all those playmakers, almost every single catch from last year is gone, including, as you mentioned, Elijah Arroyo. That my favorite player on that team, and everybody got to continue to watch him because he's going to be a beast, is Elijah Lofton.
That's the dude.
He's a 5-tool player everywhere you put him, running back, slot position if you want. He can play at the tight end. He can play at the H-back. So offensively, receiver group, defensively, secondary.
Yeah. In fact, we talked with Shannon Dawson. Let me play this clip again. I did play it on yesterday's episode, but for those who didn't see it, Shannon Dawson, Miami's offensive coordinator, on just kind of how you line up Elijah Lofton.
With him, honestly, I don't even think about, hey, these are the plays that get him the ball, really. Those, obviously, I have a couple ways he's going to get the ball. But with him, the quarterback typically finds the better players. That's just the way it happens in our offense. And so the ball finds him pretty routinely. Quarterbacks look for him. And so he's a guy that makes plays every day. You put him in the backfield and he ran a 30-yard touchdown. The kid is a very unusual kid. He can do a lot of things. His capacity is really high. And so you're lucky to have him, and we're going to utilize him in every way possible.
Yeah, and Blue, you hear the offensive coordinator says that about Elijah Lofton. It's fair to say he's going to get the ball a lot this year.
Yeah, he's a cheat code. And we kind of knew about him when Brevin Jordan went here. Obviously, having gone to UNLV and having a lot of ties out west, I know the couple of coaches at Bishop Gorman who told me when Brevin came here, when everybody raved about Brevin, what type of athlete he was, and, he wasn't your normal tight end because he was so athletic and, he could do a lot of things. And when I said that, they go, well, wait a minute, I have an 8th grader going in the 9th grade that's going to be coming here next year. I have a feeling he could blow what he did away. And, so he was on 6 years ago, he was on the radar screen. And, I told you that we had an opportunity to watch him in his senior year in the state championship game against Liberty, where he counted for 4 touchdowns. He ran, he threw, he caught, and he even intercepted a pass for a touchdown. So, and I've maintained this, since he walked on campus, that this kid's a big time cheat code. And I think everybody's kind of, learning about it. But that's a fun thing because, people are going to come out on Saturday to watch the game and watch some of these newcomers and watch some of these players who didn't take fully the wrapper off of last year. And like I said, 2 guys that I think that are going to get a lot of attention, and tomorrow will be Ray because of the fact that he's been here for a while and people are waiting to see. And then everybody wants to kind of see that little cheat code, in Elijah Lofton, to see what everybody's been talking about because they've seen him. And you remember last year he got in goal line short, but tell you what, it's going to be, he creates such a mismatch, Alex, when he lines up at tight end, because he's inevitably going to get a linebacker first and then a safety, and he'll blow right by both of them. So yeah. And then as your offensive coordinator said, we could put him in the backfield. He'll carry the ball 9 times for 125 yards, which is not terrible.
Yeah, so Blue, spring game at 4 p.m. tomorrow, but you're actually going to be hosting a camp earlier in the day, which will not conflict. And I want to make sure we promote this for you, Blue, because, you at Prep Red Zone Florida, you're doing so much to help, these high school players and young players get out there and perform. So what do you have going on Saturday?
Well, we're going to the epicenter of football and probably in the country tomorrow, Liberty City, which is an area that has produced tons and tons of talent. We're going to the famed Gwen Sherry Park, and we're going to have a camp for kids from 7th grade. This will be their opportunity as 7th and 8th graders to be in a camp combine setting for the first time, all the way through high school and seniors in high school. Teddy Bridgewater is going to be on hand. Teddy was out at the University of Miami scrimmage last week. Obviously, he took his son out there, and Teddy, even though Teddy didn't go to Miami, he's still immersed in the community. Everybody loves him, and he's going to be out there. Quite a few of the other coaches from the community, a couple of former University of Miami guys are going to come out. Tony Sands, who's going to be he's going to lead all the instruction, and so it's going to be a great day for the kids. 9 to noon at Gwen Cherry Park, right in the heart of Liberty City, and it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to see a lot of kids that we've seen for years and years and years that are now adults and have kids, and they're going to bring them out. So and that's going to lead us right up until we depart for Coral Gables and head out. And if you're going to go to University of Miami and you got those passes to get in, you better leave early, because I will tell you this: a lot of things are happening from 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock right to kickoff tomorrow, and then Miami plays Duke tomorrow night in baseball at 6 o'clock at the Light. So
that's right.
Parking's gonna
that's a double header opportunity, because I think the spring game's going to be like probably 4 to 5:30, and then you walk literally right around the corner. There. You walk over to the Light.
Yeah. So if you could Uber from your house or something, it'd probably be easier, because parking around the U. It's not easy. I have my little Watsco Center area spot and park back there, and then walk in, and but it's I'm excited. It's a lot of people love to go down to Miami. I remember back in the day where it wasn't fashionable to come to Miami. All they used to have was the intramural fields for their practice, and not a very attractive green tree. But now it's a marquee with the indoor and the Cobb and everything. So and then you have baseball. ACC baseball tomorrow night. Hopefully Miami can get out of their little slump and start off and it's maybe if the crowd is a sellout for that game, and people kind of, like you said, would make their way over, get a milkshake and a hamburger.
Did you say they got, in honor of the Masters, and I will not be getting this milkshake, just so you know, but they've got a pimento cheese sandwich milkshake where they put the cheese sandwich in the milk.
No, thank you.
I'll let somebody else handle that one. That will be available for those interested. I'll get the
we'll get Joe Z to sample it for us.
Well, and actually Joe Z is one of my favorite milkshakes. I like the Joe. He's got one named after him.
Is that the peanut butter and chocolate one?
Yeah, and the J Row is also a good one. Those are two of my favorites. So we'll be doing that. I will not be doing the pimento cheese sandwich milkshake. I will hard pass on that one. Well, we appreciate Larry Blustein as always, and make sure you follow him on X at Prep Red Zone FL. Blue, thank you so much for the time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, Alex, see you out there tomorrow.
Yes, sir. We'll see everybody out there. And by the way, let us know in the comments if you're attending the spring game. Let us know. I will be there. I'm not that hard to find. I'll be wearing, this face and Miami gear. So make sure you say hi if you see me, and say hi to Blue as well if you see us out there at the spring game. We'll talk to you guys again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.